Hi everyone, my name is Abhuraj Garakapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhi. She quickly stands up, rushes over to him, and flicks his forehead the moment she gets close enough, then smiles as she welcomes him back. At another moment, Jeoma stands in front of the school, gazing over the entire courtyard. The ground around him begins to tremble, and powerful winds threaten to push him backward. Soon after, several knives, identical to his own, shoot out from within the school, flying straight toward him. Jeoma reacts instantly, parrying and blocking every knife aimed at him. By the time he finishes deflecting the barrage, space itself seems to tear apart. Above him, a massive knife slices through the sky, descending directly toward him. Jeoma raises his own blade and cuts through it, while a voice echoes in his mind, urging him to take something and pick it up. However, he has no idea what that something is. In fact, he does not understand what is happening at all. Suddenly, his eyes snap open, and he wakes up in his room, confused, with sunlight shining onto his face. It is not the first time he has had this dream, and he has never been able to understand its meaning. His phone vibrates beside him with a message from Speed Weapon, showing off his terrible poster design that Chloe unfortunately failed to destroy completely. Aside from the fact that his club is basically doomed to never gain a new member again, his physical condition has improved more than ever since his recovery. Ever since his battle with Igor, he has been resting in a VIP treatment room, all of which has been paid for by the Sword Emperor himself. As he gets dressed to return to school for the first time in a while, his thoughts drift back to everything that happened on the island, and he can only wonder how things will unfold from here. Ryoso had told him to do whatever he wanted, but nothing has been that simple so far. When he arrives at school, the first person to greet him with a smug expression is Ryoso, and the two of them walk to class together. She immediately gets straight to the point, asking him to explain what exactly happened in Avalon, and why he was hospitalized for so long. It is not an easy subject, and no matter how much he presses him, it is not something he can simply reveal. Jeoma ignores her persistent and rather annoying questioning, instead distracting her by sending her the picture of the posters Speed Weapon had made earlier. That successfully shifts her attention, and he sends her off to deal with it. Elsewhere, Medea and Siegfried meet once again inside her office. This time, Jeoma politely steps in to join them, arriving just as their discussion is about to begin. Medea looks at him with concern in her eyes, and immediately gets to the point, bringing up how he managed to defeat the 5th General Commander, Igor. Even though it clearly happened, Jeoma himself remembers the entire event, as if it were nothing more than a strange dream. Noticing his unease, Medea attempts to steer the conversation in another direction, but Siegfried brings it right back, firmly confirming once again that Jeoma truly was the one who defeated the demon general. After all, he personally witnessed it, and as the world's strongest, he has no reason to lie. Beyond that, Siegfried explains that the demons have likely already sensed the disturbance, because until now, no human had ever been capable of standing against a demon at the level of a general. How Igor even managed to enter the human realm in the first place remains unknown, but her purpose is fairly obvious. She must have come to stop something, and if she came, then remaining idle would only make matters worse. Based on Siegfried's prediction, another war would likely break out within a few years, and this one would be on a completely different scale compared to the one from 50 years ago. In fact, the only reason the demons have not already launched an attack over the death of one of their generals is because Siegfried has not yet made any public statement, meaning there is no time to waste. The reason Siegfried called for this meeting becomes clear. Given his current condition, he can no longer fight on the front lines. With that established, he announces that he plans to step down from the 7 stars in the near future. Even Jeoma, who is usually calm, rises from his seat in shock upon hearing this, but Siegfried reassures him, making it clear that this is not a hasty decision. He had thought about it repeatedly while he was hospitalized. Even if he has carefully considered it, the public and the press will not respond with the same patience. A press conference will need to be held in a few days to announce everything and settle the matter at once. Although Medea had remained composed up to this point, hearing him speak so casually about it finally pushes her over the edge. She grabs the collar of his shirt and shakes him aggressively. Jeoma watches the scene with an uneasy smile. Up until now, He had worked hard to keep the story from straying away from its original plot, and he used to panic whenever characters acted differently from how they did in the game. But now everything has changed so drastically that trying to control it feels selfish. These people are no longer just characters in a game. They are real individuals with their own thoughts and choices, and he has no choice but to accept whatever happens next. However, the next thing Siegfried says is something Gyo-ma finds difficult to accept. Clearing his throat, Siegfried addresses him directly. The Sword Emperor intends to pass his 7-star seat on to Gyo-ma. Later, after the intense discussion comes to an end, Medea quietly curses her old friend under her breath. Of course, Gyo-ma will not immediately take over the position, since he should still be allowed to enjoy his life as a student at the academy. Even so, this is still a major decision. Medea is worried that such responsibility might be too heavy for a 17-year-old boy. Despite that concern, she cannot deny that no one is more suitable for the 7 stars than Gyo-ma. They have not made his achievements public, but if even half of what he has done were to be revealed, it would throw the entire world into chaos. As she thinks about him, Medea cannot help but recall Balor Jokwon. She stops herself before fully saying the name out loud, but the thought lingers in her mind. It is not that she fails to understand Siegfried's decision after all. The absence of a 7-star hero could create unrest in both the human and demon worlds. Even so, they still need approval from the association and the other 7-star heroes. This whole situation is bound to become a massive headache. Meanwhile, out in the hallway, Gyo-ma and Siegfried walk out of the administration quarters together. This is the perfect moment for Gyo-ma to question him about the decision to give him a 7-star hero seat, and Siegfried is already aware of that. The older man apologizes for how suddenly everything has been decided, and begins by asking whether Gyo-ma knows why there are only 4 seats filled among the 7-star heroes. The obvious answer would be that it is out of respect for the fallen allies, but that is not the full truth. The real reason those seats remain empty is because no one has ever been worthy enough to take them. Demons are far stronger than humans, and even in the game Blessing of Miracle, demons possessed overwhelming stats that made fighting them extremely difficult. Because of that, it only made sense for the heroes to accept individuals who were truly strong enough. If even one 7-star hero were to fall to a demon, humanity itself would face destruction. However, in the present day, the meaning behind the 7-star heroes has weakened, and greedy individuals now use the title as a tool for political influence. One name that immediately comes to Gyo-ma's mind is the Prime Minister of Japan, Saki Kajima, known as the Absolute Bow. In the game, she never personally appeared and was only mentioned, and Ryoso had only once spoken about her family, saying that she hated the 7-star heroes. Although everything Siegfried says makes sense, it still does not explain why he specifically chose Gyo-ma for the position. The answer is simple. Gyo-ma is significantly stronger than Siegfried himself. At that point, Siegfried brings up a question of his own that needs to be answered immediately. He asks Gyo-ma whether his power has some kind of time limit. That question causes Gyo-ma to freeze, wondering how the Sword Emperor could have possibly discovered his secret. Siegfried quickly reassures him, explaining that it was only a guess. He had noticed during the test, and again on Avalon Island, that Gyo-ma would collapse after about a minute. Since Siegfried has already grasped the general idea, Gyo-ma decides to reveal more on his own. He explains the intense pain he experiences when using his Sword God Blessing, and how he counteracts it using his Painless Blessing. However, for his own safety, he avoids going into too much detail. While he does trust the Sword Emperor, there is no reason to recklessly expose all of his weaknesses. Instead, he treats this as an opportunity to gain advice from someone more experienced. Thankfully, Siegfried promises that he will not share Gyo-ma's unique method of combining 2 blessings to complement each other. Gyo-ma's talent is undeniable, but constantly fighting under a time limit is not sustainable. It is important for him to learn how to properly control and use his power, and for that, he will need a skilled mentor. Coincidentally, Siegfried himself is looking for a talented disciple. This leads to yet another decision from Siegfried. After retiring, he intends to take Gyo-ma as his disciple. Before finally leaving, he hands Gyo-ma a tie that Aval had asked him to deliver. With that, he departs, wishing Gyo-ma a peaceful life at the academy. Gyo-ma, however, is left completely overwhelmed by all the sudden revelations. He decides, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Pi grow naturally. That he will eventually find a way to convince Siegfried to reconsider all of this. For now, he returns to his dorm for the night, and as he falls asleep, he once again finds himself trapped in the same dream. Just like before, he is fighting off waves of knives while the world around him collapses. And just like last time, the dream reaches its peak when a massive knife appears in the sky. However, this time, instead of rejecting it by cutting it down, he follows Siegfried's advice to make that power his own. He drops his own knife and chooses to accept the power descending toward him. That giant blade pierces straight through his chest, causing him to double over in pain as a strange energy fills his body. That power circulates through him briefly before leaving, and forming into a figure behind him. A voice greets him, and when Gyo-ma turns around, he sees a mysterious being made entirely of energy. At first, he assumes it might be the GM. The entity casually waves its hand, recreating the kitchen from Gyo-ma's previous life, a place that should feel familiar to him. Then, it clarifies that it is not actually the GM. It does not directly explain what it is, only vaguely, stating that it is something not too different from the GM. Setting aside the cryptic explanation, the being tells Gyo-ma that explaining everything would take too long, so it will keep things simple. It says that it is known by many names, ranging from a calamity to nature itself, but is most commonly referred to as the Sword God. There is no time for further explanation, but it reveals that the reason it can appear now is because its restraints were recently loosened. This happened during the island test when Gyo-ma reached what seemed to be a higher form. However, it is still not fully released, meaning the form standing before him is incomplete. The fact that they can even communicate like this is already a miracle, but their time soon runs out as the space around them begins to shatter. As Gyo-ma starts falling, the Sword God turns away and wishes him luck, telling him not to mess things up this time. With that, Gyo-ma suddenly wakes up in his room, his hands still raised toward the sky. His status screen appears beside him, showing that his synchronization rate has increased. Without wasting a moment, he grabs a pen and a notebook to write down everything he can remember. However, after waking up so abruptly, his memories are already beginning to fade. Right now, the most important thing is to continue gathering clues. His biggest concern at the moment is the sudden spike in his synchronization rate. While he is trying to organize his thoughts, his phone starts ringing on the bed. The moment he answers the call, a loud shout blasts into his ears from the other end. It turns out that Speed Weapon's poster has actually worked after all. The next day, Gyo-ma heads to the cafe where his club usually holds its meetings, planning to wait for the new member. Chloe sulks because she wasn't able to remove all of the posters in time, while Gyo-ma wonders what kind of weirdo would even decide to join a club after seeing something like that. Even Speed Weapon himself looks surprised that his poster actually managed to work. Meanwhile, Ryoso remains highly suspicious about the intentions of this new person, and declares that she will interrogate them thoroughly. There is nothing wrong with being cautious, especially since they still have no information about the female instructor responsible for the dungeon break and whatever she might be planning. From Gyo-ma's perspective, the new recruit could even be a spy sent to kill him, since they are about to gain a new member. The club will finally be officially established, and at the same time, they want to celebrate Gyo-ma's recovery, so they decide to go to a sushi restaurant. Gyo-ma himself is not particularly excited about it, but the others are interested because it is one of the most famous places in the academy. Getting a reservation there is difficult, especially since the Japanese students seem to enjoy it a lot. While they are discussing these plans, a girl walks into the room and asks if this is the travel club. Speed Weapon excitedly invites her to sit down, while the rest prepare to question her. She appears much more normal than Ryoso had expected, especially considering she joined because of that poster. Though compared to the rest of their rather strange group, appearing normal is not very difficult. Speed Weapon attempts to start a casual conversation, but Ryoso immediately cuts it off and switches to interrogation mode, asking the girl to begin with a brief introduction. The girl introduces herself as Sanhana, a second-year student from the ordinary class who comes from Busan. The Korean name catches Jeoma's attention as it connects to his own place of origin. However, the surname Sen feels unfamiliar to him since he has never heard of it before. Then again, even the Kang family of the Seori region does not exist in real life either. Putting that aside, Jeoma starts some small talk with her, discussing different foods and spices common in Korea, and Hana eagerly joins in. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted when Ryozo angrily jabs her elbow into his side. The blue-haired archer pulls the discussion back on track and asks Hana about her motives and her reason for applying to the travel club. Hana gives a simple and honest answer. She saw the poster and noticed that the club's main activities involve traveling and clearing dungeons. Since her academic performance has been lacking this year, she wants to clear some dungeons to improve her scores. Ryozo corrects her, explaining that the club's primary focus is traveling, while dungeon clearing is only an additional activity. She also points out that there are other clubs that focus more heavily on dungeon clearing. Even so, for a second-year student in the ordinary class, it is difficult to find a club that would even accept her. Ryozo and the others are taken aback by how straightforward her answer is, and she shifts the conversation by asking what kind of weapon Hana prefers. Hana replies that she does not specialize in any particular weapon, and instead prefers to fight using her fists. Once again, Ryozo is caught off guard, and it is rare to see her lose ground in a conversation so many times. The two girls lock eyes in a brief staring contest before Ryozo finally gives in. As the discussion continues, Jeoma observes Hana carefully. From his past job, where he dealt with many customers, he developed the ability to categorize people based on subtle habits, relying on his intuition. Along with small signals he notices from Ryozo, he decides to welcome Hana into the travel club. Now that she is officially part of the group, Jeoma tells her to speak more casually, and she immediately drops her polite tone. Hana also mentions that she does not want to be treated like a senior just because she is a year older, so everyone can speak casually with her as well. Speed Weapon hands her a form to complete so she can officially join the club. While filling it out, she notices that the club's chaperone is the school's director, Media. Seeing that, Hana gives a subtle, cryptic smile and says that she is definitely going to enjoy being part of this club. After that, she leaves the cafe, and Jeoma remarks that she reminds him of someone, although he cannot quite figure out who. As they continue chatting, Jeoma's phone suddenly rings with a message from Media. When he checks it, his eyes widen as he sees information related to his student records. After reading the message, he leaves the meeting early. The information reveals that everything about his background, from his relationship with his parents to his personal history, has been completely erased. This means that the current status of his parents is unknown. On top of that, all of his records have been wiped clean, not just details about his parents, but even his broader family connections. The only information that remains is from after he enrolled in the academy. Even when he tries to recall his own memories, it leads nowhere, as it feels like his entire life before entering the academy has been erased. His only remaining option is to try contacting his parents directly. He has not wanted to worry them, but now he has no other choice. Taking out his phone, he dials the familiar number, but the call immediately disconnects, and an automated voice informs him that the number does not exist. At that moment, Jeoma's fears are confirmed. He walks to a nearby benches. Rain begins pouring down around him and looks at the photos of his family. Even those images are slowly fading, leaving him with no proof that his life before the academy ever existed. His parents now seem like nothing more than constructs created to help him adapt to this new world. Someone has clearly set up this entire situation like a chessboard for him to play on. Whether it is the GM, the sword god, or perhaps both. One day, he is certain that he will uncover the truth behind everything elsewhere. As the sky darkens over the school, Rachel walks through the hallways with her usual crowd of Sims following behind her. Before stepping into her classroom, she turns around and calmly rejects every one of them, then heads inside. As the guys continue arguing outside, Rachel lets out an annoyed sigh and takes her seat beside Abel. The blue-haired girl quickly notices that something feels off about her seatmate today, but Rachel is the one who breaks the silence first. Before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Apai grow naturally. Asking Abel for advice. Despite being confident in both her looks and her strength, her self-confidence has recently started dropping, and the reason for that is Kang Jeoma. At the mention of his name, Abel blushes immediately and Rachel notices it right away. It does not take much to realize that something must have happened between them on Avalon Island. Abel nervously tries to brush it off as nothing, explaining that she was injured that day and Jeoma stayed with her, taking care of her until morning. However, the clear blush on her face makes it obvious that she has developed feelings for him. Rachel decides not to push that topic further and instead shifts to something more interesting. She reminds Abel that she once claimed she had absolutely no interest in Jeoma, but that is no longer true. The moment Rachel realizes this, she leans right into Abel's space. Feelings can change at any time, and human emotions are no exception, so something like this was bound to happen eventually. Returning to the main point, Rachel reveals that Jeoma has created a club, but it is so exclusive that when she tried to join, she was outright rejected. Apparently, Jeoma made it clear that he would not accept anyone from the star class, because it would be troublesome. However, just the previous day, when she went to her favorite cafe for a drink, she saw Jeoma happily talking with someone who seemed to be a new member of his club. She had never seen him wear such a cheerful expression before. It looked like they were conducting interviews, but the fact that she was rejected while he seemed so happy talking to another girl made her feel insecure. Strangely though, Abel reacts even more strongly to that news than Rachel herself. The next day, Jeoma heads to the place where he planned to meet his friends to celebrate. It is a Korean sushi restaurant and his friends are already waiting inside. Sunhana could not make it, saying that she does not like raw fish, so she chose not to attend. That seems a bit odd, considering she is from Busan, but regardless, their plans continue without her. They enter the restaurant and request a table for 4, and the person who greets them at the entrance turns out to be an unexpectedly familiar face. Chloe freezes on the spot and ends up bumping into Jeoma as she locks eyes with her brother. Jeoma immediately becomes serious and asks Nox what he is doing there, but it appears that he is simply working a part-time job, as if he has forgotten the real reason he is there. The auditor family is a globally influential and wealthy clan, so there is no real reason for him to take on part-time work, especially while hiding his identity. The only conclusion Jeoma can come to is that Nox might be on some kind of assassination assignment nearby. Their tense stare is interrupted when the restaurant owner comes out and yells at Nox for standing around doing nothing. The group decides not to interfere further and heads inside, leaving the redhead to continue working. They take their seats and begin looking through the menu to decide what to order, while Chloe remains uneasy because of her brother's presence. Their relationship is still strained, which makes it even more unfortunate since she had been looking forward to this gathering the most. Ryoso nudges Jeoma to get his attention and asks what he wants to order. As she speaks, Jeoma cannot help but notice the difference in their backgrounds. Soon, their food arrives, and while everyone else is impressed and immediately starts eating, Jeoma hesitates, carefully examining the dishes. As he criticizes the chef's poor knife skills, a rough voice suddenly calls out in broken Korean, demanding to know what he just said. Jeoma, who is used to sudden confrontations, calmly repeats his criticism, which only angers the man. Further, the chef then challenges him to come to the kitchen and demonstrate proper knife skills himself. Jeoma remains composed, though he wonders how the man managed to hear him so clearly. Regardless, he is not the type to back down from a challenge involving food, so he stands up and accepts. The chef laughs at his confidence and raises the stakes, saying that if Jeoma can prepare a better dish, he will let him eat for free. Confident that Jeoma is out of his depth, the blonde chef underestimates him. But Jeoma escalates the challenge further by requesting to work with red snapper, one of the most expensive fish to handle. The chef tries to stop him, but Nox intervenes and holds the man back, stating that if there is anyone who can be trusted with a blade, it is definitely Kang Jeoma. Jeoma walks into the kitchen, almost as if he has returned home, removes his jacket, picks up a knife, and begins working. In no time, he produces perfectly sliced sushi, leaving the chef sitting on the floor in complete defeat. In his 12 years of wielding a blade, the chef has never seen such skill in preparing sushi. Completely overwhelmed, he even asks Gyo-ma to accept him as a disciple. Gyo-ma quickly tells him to stand up, even as the man insists on calling the 17-year-old his master from now on. Although Gyo-ma does not want to disciple, he still offers the man some advice on improving his technique. After finally standing up, the chef listens as Gyo-ma explains how to better handle a blade and gain more experience before attempting such work again. Even from this brief guidance, the chef can tell that Gyo-ma is a true master. With the challenge settled and advice given, the chef honors his promise and allows Gyo-ma and his friends to eat for free. He goes even further, declaring that everyone in the restaurant can eat for free that day. Gyo-ma then continues working tirelessly in the kitchen, skillfully preparing fish with a smile on his face. From their table, his friends watch him, wondering if they have ever seen him look like that before. Seeing how hard he is working, Speed Weapons suggests that they go help him, and Ryoso agrees, calling for Chloe to join them. Just as Chloe is about to get up, her brother appears beside her and offers to teach her how to work in the kitchen. By the end of the day, Gyo-ma stands outside as the gathering finally comes to an end. It was originally meant to be a simple club celebration, but he ended up getting carried away and could not resist showing off a little. Even so, 50 seconds was enough time for him to prepare 3 fish. After spending so long cutting down demonic beasts, returning to slicing fish like he used to feels strangely refreshing for him. Soon after, Nox steps out of the restaurant, mentioning that Chloe told him to go speak with Gyo-ma. It turns out Nox has been working this part-time job, because the last time they met, Gyo-ma told him that he needed to get a real job to understand life better. It seems Nox took that advice far more seriously than Gyo-ma ever expected, even though he refuses to openly admit that he is following Gyo-ma's words. Nox cannot deny that he has learned something from the experience. The two begin talking about working in a restaurant, and Gyo-ma offers him some practical advice on handling different situations. The longer their conversation goes on, the more Nox begins to feel that the two of them do not seem like they are the same age at all. After finishing that casual talk, Nox shifts to a more serious topic. He informs Gyo-ma that the Auditory family has completed an investigation into his background and found nothing suspicious. Because of that, they have redirected their attention toward the Council of Elders, since it was them who made such a strange request in the first place. To deal with this, they are planning to form a large-scale investigation team, one that could potentially set records to uncover the truth within the Academy, and Nox himself will be taking part in it. The Auditory family targeting the Council of Elders will definitely create a lot of disturbance, but Gyo-ma considers that outside of his concern. Even so, he expresses his gratitude to Nox for sharing this information as a way to protect him. The two shake hands and Nox prepares to leave, but Gyo-ma stops him briefly. He asks Nox if he knows anything about Sanhana, the second-year student who recently joined their club. Nox does recognize her, but only as someone who always sits alone and spends her time reading. The only unusual thing about her is that she consistently remains exactly in the middle of the class rankings. Whether it is theoretical knowledge or actual combat ability, her performance is always perfectly average, which is surprisingly difficult to maintain, even on purpose. Gyo-ma takes a moment to think about this information, but their conversation is suddenly interrupted when the sushi chef rushes out of the restaurant looking for Nox. The moment he sees Nox standing with Gyo-ma, his tone softens immediately, and he quickly approaches to present Gyo-ma with a gift. It is the sushi knife he has been using for many years. Gyo-ma initially refuses to accept it, but the chef insists, sighing that after witnessing a true master, there is no point in him clinging to his tools when he has not yet mastered his own skills. In the end, Gyo-ma reluctantly accepts the knife and examines it closely. At first glance, it looks extremely expensive, and seems to be crafted more like a weapon than an ordinary kitchen knife. He spends some time staring at it, thinking about what he should name it. Then, a memory of his family and his past life surfaces in his mind, and he decides to name the blade Everfrost as a tribute to his past. Elsewhere on the school grounds, a group of suspicious-looking individuals moves together toward a dark alley where a masked man is already waiting for them. He greets them calmly and thanks them for taking the time to gather. Then he reveals himself as the professor. One of the people present is clearly unimpressed by the dramatic entrance, and impatiently. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Up High grow naturally. Demands that the masked man quickly explain what he wants, since they are all busy. The professor simply laughs in response, which only angers the man further, prompting him to demand what is so amusing. To the professor, the man is nothing more than someone intoxicated by newly gained power. Hearing that, the man loses control, activates his ability, transforms into a massive beast, and charges at the masked figure with the intent to kill him and anyone else present. However, he has completely misjudged the strength of this mysterious individual. With nothing more than a casual wave of his hand, the professor reduces the raging beast to a few floating limbs in less than a second. Everyone present is left stunned by the display of power, and the professor calmly states that this was merely an introduction. With that demonstration out of the way, he suggests moving on to more important matters. Among the group, Instructor Kim immediately recognizes that this man is the second General Koran. As soon as that thought crosses her mind, the masked man calls her forward and asks her to explain the situation. Instructor Kim, who was a disciple of Eager, reveals that her master was not killed by the sword master, but instead died at the hands of a single student named Leon van Reinhardt, who is destined to become the next hero. The following morning, Gyo-ma reflects on everything he has learned so far. Now that the Council of Elders made the mistake of trying to use the auditory family as hunting dogs, he has effectively gained the assassin clan as allies. This situation mirrors part of the game's storyline, or groups that attempted to weaken Leon eventually disappeared. That means Gyo-ma is now in a similar position, gaining powerful allies who could fight alongside him in the future. Thanks to the auditory family, he should soon uncover the truth behind everything that is happening. The only thing he has not yet fully figured out is the identity of the mysterious female instructor. From what he learned through Eager, she is someone deceitful, who obtained her contract through constant whining. Villains can easily alter their appearance, so taking her description too literally could be misleading. However, certain traits like eye color and gender cannot be changed. Even so, having purple hair and eyes is not uncommon in this world, and there are limits to how much information he can gather using the sensing ability of his sword God blessing. On top of that, his lack of knowledge about magic makes it even harder for him to understand certain aspects of the situation. He realizes that now is not the time to keep working from the shadows. He needs to act directly and boldly. To do that, he must begin by learning new things, and that leads him to consider visiting Professor Damien. While he is still thinking things through, his club members suddenly burst into the cafe, with Ryozo and Speedweapon arguing loudly about something. The source of their argument is the upcoming anniversary of the day Balor Jokuen sealed Lycan. This occasion is significant because several important figures are scheduled to visit the school for the event. Among them is one of the strongest assassins, Altair Auditor, along with the next successor of the Iron King family, Maolen, and finally, there is the Pride of America and a candidate expected to become one of the 7-star heroes. All mute, Speedweapon suggests that they should get some work done to keep the principal satisfied, but Ryozo immediately sees through him, knowing that he just wants an excuse to enjoy the festival. As the two continue arguing, Chloe turns shyly and tries to ask Gyo-ma if he has any plans for that day. However, before she can even finish speaking, Speedweapon suddenly shouts that they should set up a tasting booth. Chloe clearly does not appreciate being interrupted, and she stands up ready to cut Speedweapon down for what feels like the 5th time this week. Gyo-ma quickly steps in to save him by agreeing to the tasting booth idea, which shocks everyone in the group. Ryozo, in particular, immediately confronts him, getting right in his face and demanding to know why he would agree to something like that, even questioning if he just wants to show off in front of important figures. In reality, Gyo-ma simply wants to use this opportunity to enjoy the festival, since they might not have many chances like this in the future. That statement instantly alerts Ryozo, making her realize that Gyo-ma might know something about what is coming ahead. Without realizing it, he had been thinking about the second human demon war that would happen in 3 years, and now Ryozo is certain that he knows more than he is letting on. Because of that, Gyo-ma suddenly finds himself under Chloe's hostility and Ryozo's suspicion at the same time. Looking for help, he turns towards Speedweapon. The orange-haired boy immediately steps in and suggests that he will handle making the poster, successfully redirecting both girls' attention toward himself. Even so, Ryozo, now irritated by Speedweapon's impulsive behavior, declares that it is time to decide who will actually lead the club after Juma. She demands a duel to settle the hierarchy once and for all, so that he stops making reckless decisions. Speedweapon agrees, without hesitation, and the two head to Ryoso's dojo to fight. They stand, facing each other, and Speedweapon begins thinking through his strategy. Ryoso's main weapon is a longbow, and since they are not in a subspace, she should not be able to use it effectively. His plan is to keep his distance and apply debuffs until she becomes weak enough to attack. Sanhana acts as the referee and signals the start of the match. However, the moment the fight begins, Ryoso immediately draws her bow, catching Speedweapon off guard. Even so, he sticks to his plan, believing that as long as he applies debuffs properly, he will be fine. But in the very next instant, Ryoso closes the distance before he can even react. As he tries to say something, she slams her bow into his back, sending him flying straight out through the walls of the dojo. The others watch in shock, while Ryoso casually asks Juma what he thought of the fight. Outside, Speedweapon hurriedly applies healing buffs to himself while lying on the ground in pain. The next day, with only 4 days left until the festival, everyone is busy preparing as they work on setting up their booth. Chloe takes the role of kitchen assistant, helping Juma prepare the food. Hannah is responsible for purchasing ingredients and handling general management tasks. Speedweapon takes charge of operations and ordering the necessary items for setup. Meanwhile, Ryozo handles public relations, administrative duties, and the design of promotional materials. Despite the short time frame, they manage to organize themselves efficiently, and everything begins progressing smoothly. In his previous life, Juma never had the chance to truly enjoy a festival. He had been working since the age of 17, leaving him with no time for leisure. Perhaps that is why he was so drawn to the game Blessing of Miracle, because deep down, he had always wanted a simple and ordinary life. However, those hopes in this world were shattered. The moment Leon Van Reinhardt caught the attention of the demons during their second year, that also means this will likely be the last festival he ever experiences at the academy. His thoughts become visible on his face, and before long, Hannah approaches him and asks why he looks so down. For a moment, Juma wonders if she can somehow read his mind, but he decides not to mention it. Instead, he tells Ryozo that he will step out for a while to take care of some matters. Juma then heads over to the office of Professor Damien and finds him calmly brewing some Russian black tea. Juma declines the offer to try it and immediately gets to the point, asking about the phrase he always sees whenever he draws his weapon. May the blessing of God be with you. The topic is something that troubled the professor enough that he personally traveled abroad to research. During his journey, he went all the way to Russia, where he discovered a book containing information about that very phrase. According to the book, blessings are divided into 4 tiers: dead spirits, guardian spirits, elemental spirits, and soul spirits. Each category is determined by the type of spirit that grants the blessing. However, when it comes to gods, it is already known in the current era that no gods exist anymore. That said, this only applies to the present age. In ancient times, during what is referred to as the mythic age, there were countless gods. These gods were not like the spirits known today. Instead, they were closer to pure concepts, existing beyond the limits of mortal beings. Even so, not even these entities were able to escape death. Among all of them, only one god managed to bring that entire era to an end: the god of the sword. The phrase "May the blessing of God be with you" was originally used by humans of that age as a prayer directed toward the sword god, seeking power. After hearing all of this, Giome leaves Professor. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Apai. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.